Hey everyone, happy St. Patrick's Day. This is a Hoosier Econ vlog post. I hope all of you start enjoying some beer refreshments early on in the day and celebrate properly. This is a pretty good time of year as we have the NCAA basketball tournament going on and various party types happening. Let's get right into what I want to post about. And it was an article my buddy sent me about this week. There was a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing, and the FBI Director David Bowditch was testifying. And what had happened is local and state law enforcement have been complaining to the Trump administration that the Obama administration had deleted over 500,000 fugitives who had outstanding arrest warrants from the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, also known as NICS. This is very startling. This is dangerous. I think it gets into the point of where policymakers, for some reason in the last 2 decades, have gone to a very pro-criminal type of law enforcement philosophy. It's very much separate. Like, you have the policy wonks over here who try to shield the criminal and various policy regulations. Then you have law enforcement here who are boots on the ground, who see the social trends happening and have to deal with these criminals and the communities that have to face a backlash. NICS, in and of itself, is a system that stops criminals from buying firearms. NICS is the system that your local school and universities use to safeguard itself from, say, letting parents in with violent felony criminal history. Let employers use NICS in case they don't want to hire a felon, say a sex predator that had served time and various things like that. NICS is a very critical system, and NICS has many flaws because one of the flaws is people not reporting criminals to the system. So everybody has to work hand in hand in this. So during the testimony, this is sworn testimony. The FBI, FBI deputy director did testify that the Obama administration, through the Department of Justice, had them drop 500,000 names of fugitives with outstanding arrest warrants because it was uncertain whether these fugitives had fled across state lines. So the question wasn't, did they commit a crime in the sense of what they got, how they got onto the system. It was only a question of, did they cross state lines? They had committed crime over here and then they had fled. So the question was, what about the fleeing? Did the criminal go from Indiana to Illinois? And yes, you can have several cases where it may not be known. Okay, well, to have 500,000 cases, that is just a crapshoot right there in pontificating that you need to drop those people. I'll give you an example of how this works, because I have experience with federal database crime systems and working with local and state law enforcement. There's a lot of safeguards in these systems before you make a decision like that. The policy wonks who were sitting around in their DC office, for some reason, they decided to craft this policy. Then they have to give out the memo. Now, was this implemented by a software geek who put together an algorithm that automatically deleted the 500,000 names? Or were their names generated somehow, some way, that people had to manually delete it? Because a lot of these systems are very archaic and have security safeguards where you would have to delete them, each one individually. Maybe not. I don't know the full extent of it. I know there's just a lot of databases tied into each other. Another question is, why wasn't the public made aware of this? I mean, with computer technology today, you probably have those 500,000 names. You could easily do a social demographic breakdown of where these people are, what other warrants they have out, what other crimes that they've committed. So even if you just delete, why are they deleting them? These people probably had various extensive criminal backgrounds. This is kind of insane to talk about, that we have to ask why criminals were deleted from this database. To give you an example about NICS, just in the purchasing of firearms, when you go buy a firearm, you have to go through the NICS system. Between February 1994 and December 2014, 2.8 million people were denied buying firearms because they had a criminal background. And this criminal background is a federal law. And this is just straight off the ATF website. The Gun Control Act, codified as 18 U.S.C.S. 922G, makes it unlawful for certain categories of persons to ship, transport, receive, possess firearms or ammunition, to include any person who is a fugitive from justice. That's one of the criterias right there. Another thing to think about, when they had the Sutherland Springs Massacre, and the guy who shot up the place was former military, and his criminal background never got into NICS. Well, that made the military do a wake-up call, and right after that, the military rushed to add more than 4,000 to the gun ban list. So that was probably an extensive effort in and of itself. So when you're talking about deleting 500,000 people from it, that is a serious task. And you have to question the psychology of why. President Barack Obama is a very protected man. He is seen as this great wisdom, great intellectual, constitutional law lawyer. He needs to sit with his former DOJ people and answer why this happened. You just can't willy-nilly delete this many people without having hard evidence that they need to be deleted. Because if a fugitive warrant is cast, there were actual law enforcement officials, local, state, federal level, like example U.S. Marshals, who put these people on that list. So I find this very disturbing. I find this to be, just another nail in the coffin of people not having confidence in law enforcement, because it affects the people in uniform and doing the groundwork. So I don't know. We need to have a better system of being, I guess instead of being pro-criminal, we need to be against the criminal getting firearms. We need to have a system of checks and balances in place where, if the federal government is saying, hey, there's 1,000 fugitives in your state, Governor Holcomb of Indiana, we're going to delete them off the list, Governor Holcomb can tell the DOJ or the FBI to pound sand. So maybe it's time for the local and state officials to start taking over and have a more scrutinized list for the public safety side of it, because law enforcement is there to protect the safety of the public, and to have a trust there between the taxpayers and those serving. So that's just something to think about. I want you guys to have a great weekend and enjoy all the festivities.